some of the most brutal cases of violations of freedom of expressions and civil liberties, especially under this regime. The question now is, in terms of direction for the revolutionary movements, where are we headed?
Hmm. Thank you for your question. It's a long process. And when you say revolutionary movement, that's quite deep. I would rather phrase or rephrase the question, what is to be done? It's deep because the question is just not merely political, but sociological. You are talking of a state that is an inherited artificial state, Nigeria. Unfortunately, the ideals of the creation of that state by the colonialists is still being perpetrated by the inheritors of the Nigerian state. It's a lopsided state. It's a state created to sustain imbalance by way of exploitation. Otherwise, you won't have the regional divide that is so glaring, and then the empowerment or strengthening or propping up of the lesser educated side of the country and empowering them politically. Unfortunately, that's the northern part of the country, and its elites is doing everything not only to take their own region backwards, the people, but entire Nigeria. So you find out that being a poorly run country, uh, people are now being attacked by use of ignorance and religion and poverty as a weapon. How do you break that cycle is a great challenge. Well, people have been recommending political education of the people. I wonder how we can get out of the woods seriously. Part of the problem is that despite the zeal, patriotic zeal of people with very big Pan-African, national and Pan-African vision, can the Nigerian state, as artificially created and perpetrated, can it continue? This is a very big challenge. When we are talking revolution, most people think revolution is patriotic only when it is nationally encompassing or when it is regionally encompassing. But a situation where the purpose of creation of Nigeria is to exploit them for the benefit of the imperial Britain. Now the inheritors, which are the northern elite, is now perpetrating the same thing to enrich themselves so that if they are bringing again, people talk about confederalism. Confederalism, you find the northern elite, which is in control of the Nigerian state, still opposed to it. Not to talk of federalism. Unfortunately, the Nigerian military and the Nigerian government is a bastard in the sense that you are a bastard in the sense that you claim to belong to a family which indeed you are not, and you must act according to your true origin. So the Nigerian state, Nigerian government, Nigerian civil service, Nigerian soldiery, the military, they are enemies of the people. Instead of being the friend of the civil service, the bureaucracy is the enemy of the people because it's still a colonial inheritance. So we don't have the Nigerian army, we don't have the Nigerian police, we don't have the Nigerian civil service, we don't have the Nigerian central bank because they are anti-masses. So the challenge really is that how do we get our people to understand that the present crop of bourgeois politicians are not actually politicians, in the real sense of it, they are extractors because they are practicing extractive economy, drain away, and feed themselves, feed themselves, feed themselves, feed themselves. So the challenge is our people are poor. So when if this meeting has been a religious gathering, there will be a lot of people. If it's been a tribal gathering, it's going to be a lot of people. Even if it's a cultural gathering, there's going to be a lot of people. But once socio-political economy, well, it just less people because the African is not connected to that. It's still look at what's happening. When I made that point when I spoke, that when you speak against government officials, section of government is going to defend dogmatically that Malami is not working as a good attorney general. You defend him dogmatically. Hush Poppy's friend, that is Mr.
Kiari.
Kiari, that's so clear to any reasonable person that this person did not act well as a police officer.
He's been
People are defending
defended
him
dogmatically.
dogmatically. So it's and when the Igbos or the Yorubas or any other person, Adakaburu people and all that say we want to live out of Nigeria. How come is the north that is ironically the most impoverished but the richest? Is the only one say want one Nigeria, want one Nigeria. That means there's a problem and the nature of the country. So I would like to say that if there's going to be a revolution for the better, it's going to be sustained, there must be a way to persuade sections of the northern, at least intellectual elite to rebel. So to if you can get a recreation of people like Bukar Cherima and Aminu Kano, if without that, because as much you try to be
That's good.
patriotic, as you want to be patriotic, you want to be pan Nigeria, but it's clear to look at the young man who's become the head of EFCC, a 40-year-old. There's nothing wrong in that. But are you now saying there are no southerners
Well,
who have the intellectual capacity? It's and when you go to Lagos office, Owerri office, Ibadan office, 80% are Hausa. So you can't you will not be unnecessarily dogmatic if you continue to insist. Oh, the revolution must be pan Nigeria. The okay, look at Sharia. When you fight against Coin, you fight against alcoholism. When somebody steal a gold, you kill his head. But when you now see the daughters of the rich doing drugs, dressing the way they are doing, it's an elitist Sharia. So it's actually a weaponization of religion using the masses. So if Baba Buhari is not doing well now, yet he gets to Katsina people hail him. He gets to Maiduguri people hail him. So this is the challenge. So the Nigeria colonial project is still on and it must be broken if we are going to get, for example,
no,
you
no, let me
okay,
cut you
I'm
short.
so sorry.
So,
All right.
talking about getting out of the woods, and we've had cases of civil disobedience, protests, and occupations on the street. Should the orientation of Nigerians be towards moving in a different directions at this point in time in order to get out of the woods? You talked about political education at the other time, and
There are two ways. Force can be met with force, but at what cost? Apparently, apparently, uh, if you want to do revolution militarily or paramilitarily, it's going to be serious, but it's doable. It's when people think of South Africa and limit it to Mandela, the whole have forgotten of people like Steve Biko. We are talking of 1998 and the 1966 massacre, Sharif massacre. You forgotten of people like Albert Lutuli, 1928. Yeah, yeah, the whole African National Congress actually started in 1908. And there were a series of repression, series of killings, series of this. But the moment the Africans now rebel to the extent of some taking up arms, it became the game changer. You have to think of the support and impact of countries like Cuba. And you know, they operated at that time of the Cold Era war. And so you still get some military something from But now it's more of a unipolar world, and the whites that are the grand conspirator against the black for economic reasons. Because let me tell you, the way I understand it, this life is that fish eat fish to get fat. So the black, the continent Africa, is exploited by the West. So all these theories of democracy and all that, they close their eyes to it.
So are you advocating for armed struggle at this point in time?
Which this I'm in the middle of that. It's a choice. Then you can use a choice. It's going to be costly. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be expensive, and you may look more futile. The other way is to engage in a different form of struggle, but we need, in that case again, you now need the help of the working class, the labor, and that is now operating the sit-at-homes,
Hmm.
the economic freeze, economic withdrawal, don't go to work, sabotaging the economy by not cooperating with the oppressors. Um, Look at the EndSARS struggle. As good as it is, there's a missing point somebody highlighted today, the non-support of the working class people. The people who came out were the children of the working class people, but their parents were still supporting government unconsciously because they are still going to work. So these are the ways out. And then the third option, which I'm thinking about seriously now, is the socio-political one. Is unpleasant to the many years of any revolutionary, but to actually seek the balkanization of this country. I've worked in the north for 5 years as a school teacher, teaching English language in the sixth form where my boys were. What was in the school to use as dictionaries was John West dictionary, which we used in primary school. John West. And in out of 150 students that I had that time, only one was prepared to take English literature as a subject. And that one person was an Igbo boy. So I'm talking of 1985 to 1989 when I worked there. So you have this problem, and look at their attitude. The religion is so weaponized that once somebody is discrediting our religion. When I was there, when you dress like this as a northerner, as a teacher, if you dress like this, your fellow teacher will be calling you kafiri. That Western dressing like this by a northern teacher. This is what I experienced. Not that you are telling me. I was in my 20s then. You understand? So we have like a country of Sudan of sharp cultural divide. And my students that I taught, many of them, though they are my personal friends now, they still have a mindset influenced by their environment, their own understanding of religion is far different from you as a Southwesterner or Eastern Nigerian and all that kind of. So we have a person. I'm thinking of an idea of not necessarily balkanizing Nigeria, but going to confederalism. Very weak, very weak center. Very weak center. Now the West or the East, if they want to merge, they can merge. If the West want to send the gun, so that you could at least, I don't have to say, because you can't close your eyes. For example, you say, okay, Sharia is not applicable to me as a Christian, but when I go to them, I cannot drink beer. I'm a Christian, I cannot drink beer. It's wrong. And then when you are doing fasting, I'm more or less compared, because everybody will not go, nobody. And when you dare not start eating openly as a matter of your right of religious, that you are the one fasting, I'm not the one fasting, I can eat. People will start stoning you in the same country. So I'm trying to think of a situation now where people should now try, do not disdain bourgeois, moderate politics. You can make it more progressive and activist, and now try to get a constitutional basis for referendum on the issue of whether we must continue to stay together or move apart in whatever dimensions and now try and acquire power. So I will use an example of one guy called Babalawo Awale Adida, who just become the chairman of Ijebu East. It was about 50 or 53. He used to work with Brigadier Daniel. He left. He's not just captured that local government. And I want to see what he wants to make of that local government. So the activists, we should leave pressure politics, not abandon it, and try to see, not as an isolated forces, whether we can kick off something. These are the three options I have for where we can move forward. Military armed struggle, a severe, widespread economic struggle, sabotage, economic struggle, or balkanization in diverse dimensions.
Continues with this growing tradition of repressing opposing views. We cannot have the level of crisis we are having in this country now. And anybody, less a so-called democratic government, we expect that people will just keep quiet. Insecurity has never been so widespread as we're having it now. And the insecurity we are talking about is self-inflicted by the political elites. They were the ones that recruit the thugs and harm them to rig election and muzzle political opposition. After elections, they can't get back their arms again, and these people start to terrorize the country. And the situation is compounded by their anti-people and anti-development policies. We have had a situation where Nigeria has actually undergone a situation of deindustrialization in the past 20 years. A lot of industries have actually closed down because of the horrible physical economic policies that this government has implemented. Not only this government, but even the previous ones since 1999, that we had the so-called transition to civilian, so-called democratic governance. So we've had an economic system that has progressively destroyed the productive base of the Nigerian economy and privatizes into the hands of few people. The only achievement of the economic policy since 1999 is we have produced a few billionaires in dollars, while Nigeria has become the country with the highest number of poor people in the world. And mind you, Nigerian 200 million people is only a little fraction of India's 1.4 billion people. So if we are having more poor people than India, than China, then it shows the depth of our crisis. The educational sector has been pulverized and destroyed through systematic underfunding because they have also tried to privatize education. But what do we have? The public education system has crumbled. But the private sector is not proving to be an alternative. As a matter of fact, the private schools are becoming the grooming ground where children and young people actually socialize into culture of corruption. Because these schools are in competition with each other. They want their children to pass public exams. And so what do? They actually encourage teachers to teach their children during public exams. They actually organize mass exam leakages and all of that. So children are socialized into a culture of corruption. That is what privatization of education has done. It imperils the future of this country because of the damage it is doing to the psyche of our children and young people. And no wonder we're having a whole generation of young people whose values are so antisocial. So on the health sector, we all can see, even the president does not deem it necessary. The Buhari government has been government for 6 years now. Even if there were to be no hospital at all in Nigeria, we expect that was more than enough time to at least build an hospital that will be patronized by the president. But the president jets off every now and then for the treatment of his own personal ailments, while Nigerians have no hospital to go. As we are speaking now, the president is outside the country on medical tourism, while medical doctors are on strike because of neglect, because of underfunding of the healthcare sector. We can go on and on. The comatose infrastructure, which is also damaging the productive base of the country and making even the so-called private sector to function optimally. So this is the situation that is compounding the general state of insecurity that the politicians are inflicted by harming some youth. And particularly under the Buhari government, we have also had a situation of extreme nepotism, what people can clearly see as a one-sided response of the government to what is perceived as threat to security. Government is perceived as treating Boko Haram terrorists, for instance, with kid gloves, because captured terrorists are being rehabilitated at public expense, sometimes reabsorbed into the army, and it has been also proven that some of these reabsorbed former terrorists are the ones even selling out the Nigerian army during their encounters with Boko Haram, and making the war, the so-called war on terrorism, more and more difficult. The same government that can adopt the attitude to terrorists who are responsible for the complete destruction of the economic life in the northeast part of Nigeria, of the entire region, northeast part of Nigeria, who have killed over 20,000 Nigerians, who have displaced over 2 million Nigerians, are being given this kind of kid glove treatment. Why in the south, those who come out to say this situation is not acceptable are being hounded. We have the situation where a Kanu was abducted from another country in a most lawless manner. We have a situation where an Igboho has been hounded out of the country. His house was invaded in the night. Some people were killed in the course of that. And so the message out there is that some terrorists can actually be, how do Catholics call people they want to, can actually become saints. Why people who dare to say no, this situation is unacceptable, becomes the people that are hounded. I don't want to go into the story of Omoyele Sowore, we were all familiar with. What has he done? Just for saying this situation is not acceptable. We expect the government to respond through engagement and dialogue, listening to alternative views, and see how we all move the country forward. But what do we have? We've had a brutal suppression of not only the individual person also, but even the peaceful group that has tried to set up to say Nigerian youth must have a voice.
Now, considering the movement, Coalition for Revolution, for example, how much remains the same and how much has changed? And is there any energy or appetite for a renewed occupation and protest in the near future?
Well, the truth is that the Coalition for Revolution I see as catalyst. Coalition for Revolution actually, in more intelligent societies, governments will show interest in a movement like that and see how it can actually be encouraged, if not overtly, because it is the alternative to absolute anarchy. It is either you encourage a situation whereby young people can ventilate their discontent and grievances, can canalize what they see as their, heartfelt grievances, and present it in coherent and articulated manner that both government and even non-state can say, yeah, we have to engage these people because they have a point. We can't continue this way. But you want to repress that kind of movement, you are asking only for anarchy. And the trajectory since 2019 has demonstrated that basic fact. The Revolution Now movement was launched August 5, 2019 and engaged in series of mass action despite the apparent repression. I remember October 1, 2019. I remember August 5, 2020. And despite the repression of August 5, 2020 protest, a few months, just a few months after the protest, a group Because we don't, like one of African revolutionary leaders, one, Amika Cabral, tell no lies, claim no easy victories. We claim no ownership of Hensa's protest. It happened on us, but we welcomed it. You see, what does it say? It says when you repress, what you might have might be a million times worse than what you are trying to repress.
Now, let me just quickly cut you up. You talked about the trajectory, the change in the trajectory.
Yes.
Nigerians have expected that 2 years after, what will have expected upheaval, street protest, and other actions. But we are seeing a different trajectory from the revolutionary movement and the coalition.
If you are a student of history,
and please also add that there's still any appetite for future protests.
That is what I've just illustrated. It will appear that after the suppression of the revolutionary movement and agitation after the August 5 protests, that Nigerian people have been pacified. Nothing can happen again. Those people have been survived. And in fact, by the time SARS burst out, some of the people are still in prison. But despite that, the NSAS movement happened anyway. That goes to tell you that revolution now or no revolution now, what we're having now in this country is either revolution, organized, or complete anarchy. That is the lesson. So if you are expecting a protest today to mark in fact, what we're having today is intentional. That we should not also be too predictable all the time. So the government expects that, okay, you are coming on the street again and blah, blah, blah. So we arrest you, we go through that ritual. So we said, okay, have a moment of introspection and meditation. Are we done right? What are we done not so right? What can we do better? So it is not a retreat. Rather, it is a necessary moment, of regrouping, and it happens even in the most ferocious wars. Armies retreat, introspect, regroup, take out their wounded, replenish their stock, replenish their arms, strategize on how to forge ahead. So the fact that we don't have agitation on the streets today should not be mistaken for the fact that maybe people are worn out or tired or whatever. On the contrary, I think it's actually an expected moment, of introspection on how to actually forge ahead. And like I've said before, the lesson for the Nigerian state actually is to allow peaceful protest, to allow peaceful ventilation of discontent. When you disallow that in a country with this kind of situation, you are asking for explosion. And the point should be made. In the 21st century world, nobody has monopoly of violence. Boko Haram has demonstrated that half illiterate people are manufacturing IEDs. If that trend gets to the south, you can imagine. Somebody has opined that even OND industrial chemistry you can manufacture nuclear weapon from the internet. Everything is on the internet. OND industrial chemistry can do anything. So nobody has monopoly of violence in the 21st century. The only way to go is to allow peaceful protest and to allow organized movements that government can even engage with.
As Nigeria is presently, I, as a person, I don't have any atavistic attachment to Nigeria as presently constituted. If Nigeria is balkanized today, it was because of the nepotism of a Buhari and the fascist government of APC that has misruled Nigeria today. Ordinarily, Igbo, you don't know, Igbo has been doing his things before now. But history threw Igbo up because he's now articulating the interest of the Yorubas who felt oppressed by the Fulani. The Fulani are now taking over our land. That is what Igbo is agitating for. And that is why a Buhari government sent their terror squad, the DSS, to go and kill him. He narrowly escaped the state organized murder. He tried to run abroad. He was arrested and they were trying to extradite him to Nigeria. The rendition of Nnamdi Kanu happened. It's the same state that is now using everything humanly possible to defend a super coup, Abba Kyari, who has been used time without number by the same state. People are celebrating him. People have forgotten that Abba Kyari is one of those people that make life miserable for Nigerian youth that culminated into that EndSARS protest. But because Abba Kyari is a willing tool of the oppressive ruling class, they promote him. He has committed a lot of atrocities that were covered. It's in the good book of the state. But many Nigerians today, if they have the chance, they have enough evidence to show why Abba Kyari should spend the rest of his life in jail. As far as some of us were concerned, Igbo should not be extradited to Nigeria. He should not be extradited to do what? The struggle for self-determination, as they were killing our people, they're supposed to be at the vanguard. But where are they today? Because they go from one government house to the other, one governor's office to the other, one commissioner to the other. They are benefiting from the system. So they have compromised our people. Imagine someone said, our agitation, we are foolish for agitating. The same person that about 4-5 years ago were saying at WB, our people that these people are not treating us well. We want to be foolish by fighting for our rights. We cannot allow Fulani to take over our land and be killing our people just because some people want to be president at all costs. Whose interest are they serving? They said Southwest. Where do we agree that Southwest to be president? Where do we agree that Tinubu, Fayemi, or any other person to be president on behalf of the Southwest? They cannot be using our mandate now. They were using our name to suffer, to improve us. They have been doing that, and we are saying enough is enough. In fact, it has become a palliative too late and too little now. The question of restriction, it is late now. What we are saying is UN should supervise a national referendum for a peaceful dissolution of the Nigerian state. They will continue to repress us, they will continue to kill us, but we shall get there, we shall overcome. The people united can never be there.
Now in August 5, 2019, we raised a lot of issues that's ranging from abuses against human rights. We raised issues about insecurity, poverty, a lot of issues. Now fast forward to 2 years after, this is 2021. Everything we talked about that brought us to the state in 2019 has assumed a monstrous dimension in 2021. In fact, after 2019, we had another action in 2020, which happened across 23 states and outside the country, the diaspora. We had that, and from 2020, you will see a trajectory of resistance from August down to October 1 protest, and that then galvanized into what we know as the EndSARS barricades. And since then, the Nigerian people have continued to engage the regime. 2020 was an all-time year of protest. 2021, it was also marked with resistance from all levels, from struggles by workers to student agitations to community resistance and even down to ethnic revolts. If there is anything that we can bring out today is the call for revolution is a call for the Nigerian people and it's a call for the Nigerian people to take their destiny into their own hands. The system had failed fundamentally in two critical issues. That is primarily its function. It has failed to guarantee welfare of people. It has failed to secure the lives and properties of the Nigerian people. So if anything, this is a real the time for revolution can never how should I put it now? This is indeed is the time for revolution.
Now, if there anything history has taught us,
Yeah.
every authoritarian regime has been doomed to fail. I know it will be pointless to start debating the successes of the revolutionary movement.
Yeah.
Now, should we be looking at a different ways of pushing for democracy, and are there more appetite for and energy for more occupations and protests in the future?
Absolutely. the uh, the road of liberation, the road towards liberation, you cannot go to it without passing through the street of resistance. The streets is where the people, the ordinary people, can own. The street is where they can genuinely take power. So and like we've had it previously, it's going to be as long as this system continues to attack the welfare, lives, properties and security of people, it is going to be a luta infinito, and by default I mean resistance infinito until Nigerian people are able to reclaim their political and economic dignity.
Or negative regression. Regression is the way meant by, as I understand, by the organizers, who suggest political regression. Political regression, does it exist in the country? The answer generally will be, oh yes. But what you are calling regression depends on where you are sat or where you are seated. Some other people see what you call regression as discipline or as being responsible leaders of the community. That these people complain too much. You remember, for those of us who are either full-time Christians or part-time Christians or academic Christians, the story about Moses and the struggle to liberate the children of Israel. At a point, the king or the emperor said that, well, you people that you are complaining because actually there's too much time in your hand. So instead, the way we have been making bread before, we used to give you water and grist or something, but now we will draw that. So you go and be making the hay yourself so that you will be more engaged, so that you won't have this kind of coming before us ever so and often asking that you want to go away. That is just a form of regression. And drawing from the Bible and the story of Daniel, it says, whoever is found to be calling on any other God except the king, that person shall be killed. That is repression of religious rights. Then one supposedly madman who happened to be the prime minister decided to do revolution now and break that law openly and all that kind of a thing, so that there will be consequences. When there is political force, now the issue, and this is what I want to discuss here, the issue of political repression in a democratic setting itself negates democracy. Democracy is essentially about equality and freedom and liberty. Anyone who knows at least the theoretical history of democracy will know that democracy was an antithesis supposedly through monarchy. In those days of kings, the king is the judicial officer, the king is the legislative power, and the king, of course, is the executive. And even at the spiritual, the king is the spiritual controller. All the powers, and if there are the powers of first those days, is to stood under him. So there was a rebellion in certain parts of the world, France defeated, and then the other thing that we have to divide these powers. You can't fuse it into one man. And that's when we get the famous statement, absolute powers corrupt absolute. So that the person who is the executive, the Akpashewa, will not be the judge. And will not be the maker of the laws. And we break it down. And then the citizens, their status will change from subjects to citizens. The people will no longer be subjects, but citizens. And when you are a citizen, essentially it means you are living in a political environment of republicanism, equality, everyone is equal, including the king. You have some ceremonial prestige and privileges, but these people are no longer serfs or slaves or subjects, but citizens. And so they can challenge you before you can challenge the king, and it's above the law, and the vestiges of this kind of privileges and power will still reside in the queenship in England. The Queen of England is the only head of state in the world who doesn't carry a passport to travel. He doesn't hold money. She doesn't hold, or the king. The reps, if you are the king, the Regina, if you are to be a woman that is on the throne, and the king does no wrong. But all this changed because the equation changed. And so when people in government are holding power, not for themselves, not by themselves, but for the people. So the people have the right to actually not only pay them, but to sanction them and to complain. So the idea of how DIE does not arise in democracy. So, but when you have a repression, that will tell you that you are introducing into aristocracy or monarchy. How DIE? So is it growing? Is it growing in Nigeria? This crisis, I think it's growing because people have been saying now that it seems, for those of us who are old enough, for those of you who read a lot about the past, that's like we are going back to pre-1999, in fact, pre-1984 of military rule. The sense of fear, the sense of foreboding, the sense that you can be brutally and violently dealt with, not according to the law, in accordance with the law, but anyhow, executive rascality and lawlessness, supported by judicial castration, is evident in the country. And so, people will warn you, you have to be gentle, I have to be careful, that's standard here, you are going down, and all this kind of a thing. And that tells you that as a problem. And of course, the issue of lack of employment, lack of security, poor economy, lack of hope. Yes, lack of hope. A client came to me yesterday for a 3-bedroom flat somewhere in the parents expected to pay $1 million. So when the parents told myself, bóyá ọdún mẹ́ta ni bóyá ọdún méjì, maybe it's 2 years or 3 years. Alas, only for her to say that, in fact, she was happy that I've managed to drop 800,000 naira. So I said, it's for 1 year, 700,000 naira is rent, 300,000 naira is for agent and letters agreement. I said, immediately my mood changed. I was just wondering in my mind, 1 million naira. Even me, as you used to tell us, at this time, if you come to 800,000, you have to 1 million naira. Now, that this lady is about 50 years old, so she's not young. Now, look at you. And you must not do fraud. I think as a bishop, the bishop comes in, he will say it's a sin. And you must not do much talking. It's a sin. And there is all sort of things. It's a sin, it's a sin, it's a sin, it's wrong, it's immoral, it's criminal. But Nigeria is no longer a land of opportunities. The attitude is you are criticizing that person because it's not from your own part of the country. If the person has not done well like our Mr. Malami, that's a wonderful according general. Everybody is the level, we are very well, or we are in that is not, that cannot be a very credible person for the purposes of fulfilling the office of Attorney General of the Federation. Attorney General means people's lawyer, Attorney General. Attorney is lawyer, General is for everybody. But this one is Attorney General for government, Attorney General for AEC. And this person scandalized everybody by wearing a Pampula shoe, wearing my shoe that is because of other type of shoes. And when we decided to wear it, they said no, that it is, and you find people from that side of the country blindly defending. So you have a problem. The more you want to be nationalistic and patriotic, you see that the colonialists who created Nigeria are handled and created in such a way, in a lopsided manner, that the least educated, I didn't say the least intelligent. I've been in the North before for 5 years as a teacher, and I knew that it is the own assumption that Hausa and Westerners or whoever they are less intelligent. No, they are just less exposed to Western modern teaching and all that kind of thing. But it was very rich. The Southerners, particularly the university, are seen as storymakers because it is difficult to make the slave of the person who is enlightened. And this particular system is still being perpetuated to today. We are able to reach one part of the country in all positions, and they are good, and they are functional. I think Nigerians are not able to complain. But what people are not able to communicate, and that is where there is a local people who is still being regarded more than many of the southern people here. That is Marwa, is it Kakemalwa, you say it's a Marwa Kaki. It's an actor, but there is no particular one who is a legitimate. It's a southern and it's a legitimate. In fact, it's a legitimate. So Nigerian people have managed it. But when the people are not very competent at all, and they put them because they have the political power and do anyhow, that is wrong. Imagine we have 35 people holding sensitive political power. What in summary I want to say, let the people know how to move away from mere activist struggle to creating sincere political platforms to seize power, whether at a state level, at a local government level, at a regional level, and do something and show that we can look at impact. Because at least now, our people are still, because they reduce weapon of religion and hunger from them, if they still down 2 kilograms of rice and 500 naira, they will still follow them. They are not going to follow us. But if we consciously decide to work together outside you and try to break our difference, because we are too polarized, and somebody is legalist, somebody is socialist, is just a mere activist. It's not a It's a that